is it that when a man cheats on a woman, the response is always, there's no excuse for cheating. How could he have cheated on her? She is so beautiful. She is so gorgeous. Has he seen her? He fumbled the bag. She gonna end up with an NFL player soon that is a gorgeous woman. How could he possibly cheat on her? Men are terrible people. But when the woman cheats, always the response is, well, we don't really know the whole story. He probably was taking her for granted. She probably pleaded with him and tried to communicate, and he just would not listen to her. So at some point, she probably broke. We are always siding with the women when it comes to infidelity. At that point, everybody all of a sudden understands nuances and how complicated things can be. Until it was Desmond and Christy. Now all of a sudden, there's absolutely no excuse. Am I saying there is an excuse that anybody should be out breaking their vows and being unfaithful? Absolutely not. But I do believe that you all will be having a very different conversation if it was Christy who was unfaithful, because you guys understand and have far more grace when it's women who step out on their marriages than when it's the man. I do not know those two people. But I know that there's far more possibilities than the one that y'all came up with, which is just, he just didn't like the fact that she got bigger than him.
Listen, we already know this to be facts. Right? We don't look at men as humans, and we don't really race. We don't look at them as few humans. Like, outside of what you can produce, men are just supposed to be interchangeable placeholders. You're not supposed to do what we don't want you to do, what we feel like you shouldn't do. So when men express anything resembling any type of race or emotion, or make the same decisions that a woman can make, it's always vilified. It's always looked at as something must be, he's the devil incarnate. But when you flip it, and that's when the grace is available. That's when the reason is available. That's when, to be honest, you flip it right back and say, well, what did he do? Same circumstances of cheating. You just flip the players, and it's always, well, he drove her to this. We don't realize what this really means in the larger aspect. When we don't give women the same sort of consequences for their behavior, when we feel like we're giving them grace, it's hard to walk away from the notion, right? And hear me out, that we're trying to make it seem like women cannot handle the same things that men handle. You infantilize them by giving them so much grace and coddling their decision making, or shielding them from consequence. Essentially, that's what it is. You're protecting them from the consequences of their own decisions because you're treating them like children. When men do something flat out, that's wrong, you shouldn't have done that, this is what's wrong with you. But when women do it, here's the reasons why. There was always an inciting incident that made you do that. There's always someone else at fault for your decisions. It takes away that real autonomy and decision making for women. And when you want to have your autonomy and decision making here, but don't want to have it here, well, larger society, and not just men, look at it and say, okay, where else do you want to pick and choose what you can do and what you aren't liable for? Why would we give you more? Why would we open more of the doors? Or why should we trust you with bigger decision making when you can always expect it, when you expect to be absolved from many of your decisions, with the consequences of those decisions? You either are a full functioning adult who is successful in society, as women are ought to claim to be, or you're not. This becomes a binary thing for a lot of men. You are either an independent woman, or you need to be coddled all the time and saved from your poor decisions. When you're in that leadership position, when you're making decisions, yeah, if you have to choose whether to go left or go right. You have to make a choice. Sometimes you're going to make the wrong choice. When you make the wrong choice, you need to learn from the consequences of that wrong choice. When we coddle you, when we let it go, it just seems like, all right, if you make it again, you can expect the same sort of reaction. Listen, but before we continue, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss new uploads. We're still trying to upload, still trying to do what we kind of do, even though the algorithm is currently a little busted. All the same, we show up, we do the work, and then tomorrow we'll show work. So I'm linking this to another post that a different creator made, where she was basically crashing out and explaining about all the things that went wrong with her, um, like in the last year. And one of those was said, I cheated on my boyfriend. And she kept going, talked about losing a job and every other thing under the sun. And she had to make a follow up post because people were giving her consequence for that decision. People saying they were focusing on that. And she was kind of upset that, well, why are you focusing on that? Like, I did that and wanted to move on. Her reaction to that makes sense because you're typically, whenever, if you see women come on here and say they did something like that, they're not met with that same type of vitriol. They're not met with that shaming or that consequence that we give men. We the couple that was caught at the concert. Well, we focused on the man. We focused on the CEO and said, "Look at you, what you're doing." We never look and say, "Well, okay, what about her? Where's that heat and that judgment for her? Why doesn't that exist? Why do we have this double standard when you want to give women the same sort of authority, autonomy as men?" Part of that authority and autonomy comes, here are the consequences for your decisions. You no longer get to say, I only did this because a man did something to me first. I would not have reacted poorly if you did not talk to me like this. You see the effects of that everywhere when you see these conversations that are being had online between different creators or these panel discussions, and there's always like a, you can call it an accountability dodge by throwing it back by saying, well, why did these boys end up in prison? Why are they not leaders? And we say, well, they were raised by single moms. Okay, and then she's like, but where were the dads? Well, okay. And then men are saying, well, why'd you sleep with a dude that wasn't shit? Oh, but men lie and they hide who they are in the entire time. At what point can we hold frame and say, there's a large amount of this that you're responsible for? You have to eat, take your bite of that shit sandwich where, yeah, something I did here caused this. I was a participant along the way. When we constantly get the accountability dodge, all that makes us say is, okay, I either have to treat you with kid gloves, you aren't really grown up enough for this conversation, and we just shouldn't have it. If we get to the point where we just fully assume that women don't have the ability to be accountable, then we have to make sure we're going to adjust the way we move. That's always going to happen for men either, and it's not really going to always be an adjustment for the good. Sometimes it's simply adjustment saying, okay, if you're not going to be accountable, I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to do what I want. If I'm always at fault, I'm going to do what I want. The flip side of that, if I'm always at fault, say people in relationships, long-term relationships, if I'm always wrong, I'm always at fault, then I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to go out of my way to do anything. This is when women get husbands that have become shells of themselves, don't really participate, don't really say anything, don't really have an opinion on anything. They just go with the flow because one, they feel if I say anything about anything, it's always going to come back and be my fault. So if I just don't want to fight with you, I just do whatever you want to do, then you'll be happy. No, you there'll be some other issue because it's not you. We're at that point also dodging this accountability. We're saying the same things we accuse women of. I'm only doing this because you would do this. At that point, we both need to take a step back and say, if no one can be accountable, then no one really can be an adult. If I can't come to you and say, this, what you did here, that's wrong. And your follow up is, I only did it because this. It gives women this fault of being the default setting of being innocent, of I never do any wrong. It's never my fault. I only react to your bad decision. We all know that's not true. If you're an actual fully formed adult, you're going to make decisions that probably sometimes aren't in the best interest of your partner. Same thing that your partner is going to do for you. It's when you guys say we have a duty to one another to try and minimize that, to try and believe that what we're doing is in the best interest of both of us. Sometimes we're gonna fall astray of that. We're gonna fall short of that. But can we come back together to deal with this? But if one person is always saying it's never my fault, then yeah, I think the best place for you to be is probably alone on both sides of that. But if you disagree, let me know down in the comments. If you see videos on your screen right now, do my job. Take a look at those. Let me know your thoughts about those and those videos. And of course, if you listen to my voice now and you have not subscribed, I really think you should. We're trying to build something dope. I'll see you in the next one.